What's up, guys? Paulie Malignaggi of Paulie TV. Listen, I had some thoughts on my head about these missed weights. Guys, missing weight for these big fights, for these main events. Guys blowing off the weight, whatever. There's always a reason. There's always an excuse. Sometimes it's a legitimate reason, but very rarely can you really afford to miss weight in a big fight like this. Talking about this weekend's fight, where it was going to be Keyshawn Davis' first defense of the WBO lightweight title against Edwin de los Santos. Ironically, it's a weekend of missing weight because I'm in San Antonio for the Pro Box TV fights this weekend, and our main event, Justin Poldo, also missed the weight by about 3 pounds in his fight against Juan Carlos Burgos, and that fight is also off because they couldn't come to terms with the penalty and whatnot. Just like Keyshawn Davis missing weight by 4.3 pounds against Edwin de los Santos caused his fight to also be canceled because there was no agreement on the, on the penalty, on how much money would be given to the fighter that actually did make the weight and showed up prepared. Here's my thing. I mean, there's various ways to think about this. There's various ways to approach this. My thought, obviously, being an ex-fighter, there was a lot of times I made weight in my career, and I think, you talk to any fighter, there's, various methods that fighters will use to make weight, but usually at the end it's very, very difficult. We end up having to dry out, and there's an uncomfortable period in that, especially in that final week, But here's the thing. I mean, I've seen guys miss weight and try to miss weight. And when you miss weight, but you tried, you're usually close. You're usually probably within a pound, maybe slightly over a pound. For me, in my opinion, if you start showing up 2 pounds or more overweight, dude, you knew you weren't going to make the weight. Come on. And it's like, at the point of you getting, because 2 pounds, listen, it's very, very difficult. Getting off those last pounds is very, very difficult if you really are having trouble making weight. Those last couple pounds are really difficult. If a couple pounds can seem like nothing when you're at a normal walking around weight. You can lose it in a day, even just going for a long walk. But when you're at the very, very, wit's end of your body, you're dried out and your body has nothing to give, 2 pounds can be a very, very difficult thing to get off. But what I'm saying is, already, if you're going to be off by 2, 3, 4 pounds, already you're not going to make the weight. You know what I mean? Like the guys that legitimately, for me, miss weight where they try to make the weight and they miss it, it's usually a pound or less. I'll give you like a pound and a quarter, where you went for it and it hit the wall and it wasn't going anymore. It wasn't going to happen. I don't know. Once you go over 2, 3, 4 pounds, I don't know, man. That means, because you're obviously trying during the week to make weight, right? I mean, so once you go 2, 3, 4 pounds, how heavy were you earlier in the week? 10, 12, 15 pounds? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, for you to miss it by 2, 3, 4 pounds, dude, that means you were never close to begin with all week. You knew you weren't going to make it, And that's sort of the issue I have here with Keyshawn Davis missing weight. You're missing weight by 4.3 pounds. But he's hanging around at press conferences talking like he's the lightweight king. And you know what? Honestly, Keyshawn Davis is a very good fighter. He was one of those fighters I was really excited about, and probably still am excited about it as far as what he can do in boxing. In a lightweight division that is stacked with talent, but the big fights don't get made. I was actually looking at Keyshawn as a guy who might chase these big fights. And the fact that he was taking on Edwin de los Santos, who's a boogeyman in the lightweight division, a guy that nobody really wants to fight, who's very, very dangerous, very, very good fighter. That that only in a sport like this could somebody that good just be X'd out and just put out of the mix for being too good and too dangerous. Only in a moronic business like boxing, in a moronic sport like boxing, could that happen. And the fact that Keyshawn was going to fight him, made me really want to give him a lot of credit. And, when I saw the press conference the other day when he was arguing with, Keyshawn was arguing with Abdullah Mason, a phenomenal young fighter coming up the ladder, a guy that we can all be excited about relatively soon at a world-class level. He's been tearing guys up on the way up. But, for a second, I'm thinking about the argument he had with Abdullah Mason where, okay, he's arguing with Abdullah Mason, and I thought, like, wow, this is kind of dangerous. You might be overlooking De Los Santos, who is no slouch and who can be very, very dangerous, and who even some people low-key were picking them, who might be able to upset Keyshawn, because Keyshawn actually has such big youth energy and so much skills that he actually wants to fight you because he wants to prove so much more, and he maybe won't fight so safe against a guy like De Los Santos, where maybe fighting a little bit safe might be the smart thing. So, there was a question mark as to whether Keyshawn would be too excited and maybe overlook De Los Santos in his excitement to make a statement in the lightweight division and possibly put himself in danger, And when I saw him arguing with Abdullah Mason, who, kept his poise, Abdullah did, mature beyond his years, and just, kept his composure. And, Abdullah Mason knows his time is going to come soon. I was thinking, okay, maybe, hopefully Keyshawn's not overlooking De Los Santos, who's a good fighter himself and who could upset him, despite the crazy odds on the fight, no less. So that's another question for that's another conversation for another time. Then I'm looking back now, when the guy doesn't make the weight, you're thinking, what was this guy even arguing with Abdullah Mason about? Like, you're showing up over there. You gotta know in that moment. What I'm saying is, when I tell you, you're not gonna make weight when you show up that much overweight, you gotta know already in the moment when you're at the press conference that you're probably not gonna make the weight. So all this bravado, all this bluster, to then have the egg on your face at the weigh-in, for what? For what? What's that about? What's the need for that? You know what I mean? Like, because by that point, it's so close to the weigh-in. It's the day before, the 2 days before. I don't remember what it was, but come on, bro. Like, then you show up 4.3 pounds overweight. You already know at that press conference. You're going to that press conference with your mind possibly stressed, or maybe you're not stressed. Maybe you don't even care. I don't know. I mean, that depends on how important the lightweight title was to Keyshawn Davis. But, like, you got to, at least on your mind, that you're not going to make this weight. So, now looking back, I mean, obviously in that moment, I'm thinking, wow, he's got to be careful. He doesn't want to overlook De Los Santos. De Los Santos is dangerous. I don't know if you should be thinking about Abdullah Mason right now when you fight De Los Santos later this week. To now thinking, like, what were you even doing arguing with Abdullah Mason? What were you even doing with all that bravado and bluster at the press conference? Just be low-key at the press conference so you have less of an egg on your face when you don't make weight Friday. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of touch with the generation, and these guys are different. And mindsets are different. I don't know. I still think Keyshawn can be a good fighter, but, this is now starting to become a little bit of a pattern, and some of these kids have that. Some of these young phenoms have these kind of problems, I think he had a no contest for a failed marijuana test earlier in his career. Obviously, okay, marijuana, obviously, people go much easier on marijuana failed tests now. Some people may even believe that you shouldn't even be suspended or fail a test if you're positive for marijuana. And you know what? I'm not for or against that argument. That's an argument that really doesn't really, I could see both sides of it, is what I'm saying. But nonetheless, if you know marijuana is illegal and you're going to lose a win and it's going to be called a no contest, and you could be suspended if you test positive for it, why would you be smoking marijuana before the fight? You know what I mean? So that's already something that had happened in the last year or two with Keyshawn Davis. So now this is strike number 2 here. Now he's starting to pick up a pattern. Now he blows off the weight after winning the lightweight title by 4.3 pounds. He blows off the weight. So you blow off the weight where he knew already. Like, you barely tried here. 4.3 pounds is a big weight. Is way overweight for a lightweight. It's almost into the next weight class. So I don't know, man. Obviously I'm telling you for the Pro Box TV main event Saturday night this weekend. Also, Justin Paldo showed up 3 pounds overweight. He said he was sick and he didn't make the weight. But regardless, 3 pounds is 3 pounds. You got to know before the weigh-in. Because, again, you're not 2 pounds. I give you that 2 pounds and that under 2 pounds threshold. Maybe just over 1 pound, more so than that at most. You start showing up 2, 3, 4 pounds overweight. Guys, you're not going to make the weight. I don't know. I don't understand what the whole point of shocking everybody at the weigh-in is, like, especially in the Paldo situation. I don't think there's any belts on the line, at least not even any regional ones. So they could have, the smart thing to do is ask the matchmakers for, maybe to reset the contract, come to an agreement before the weigh-in, so you can come to an agreement with the opposite team before the weigh-in. Hey, you know what, we're not going to make the weight. Can we come to an agreement where I'll give you a piece of my purse? Just so you don't have a mess at the weigh-in, bro. You know what I mean? Just so you don't have the mess at the weigh-in. With Keyshawn Davis, they couldn't do that because there was a world lightweight title on the line. So the fight has to be at lightweight. Both fighters have to make 135 pounds. But I just don't get it, man. I really don't get it. So much about boxing frustrates me. So much about talented fighters who underestimate or don't appreciate the opportunities that they get for their talent that they have and what they can achieve and the fact that this life, it's not forever and you got to really take advantage of it while you can and pursue greatness. I don't get it, man. A guy like Keyshawn Davis, it's really frustrating to see, man. I don't know what you guys think at home. I'm also thinking about the fact that they were trying to make him a bona fide star, not just overall, but in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. I've heard that over $10,000 in tickets were sold just by Keyshawn Davis. I don't know if that's a rumor, is true or not, but you're selling that much or 100,000, not 10,000. What am I saying? 100,000 in tickets maybe was sold or something like that. Like, I don't know, some crazy amount where, like, you know, he was real. People in Norfolk were really, really looking forward to seeing him. You know what I mean? Like, this is, you know, Pernell Whitaker town, you know, and you are, there's so much expectation of you now expected in a place like Norfolk where, you know, you're representing the greatness of Whitaker as well. I don't know, man. It's crazy. I just don't know. Like, Pernell Whitaker never blew the weight, right? I mean, obviously he had problems later on in his career, bro. Bro, you look at the lightweight Pernell Whitaker. I think he defended or won the title in Norfolk. I think when he beat Greg Haugen, the fight was in Norfolk, Virginia, when he got the IBF lightweight title. But just, dude, I mean, look at that fight. Like, that's an amazing Pernell Whitaker in front of his crowd. How into him they were. You know, this is not a huge city, so you know you're a guy from there who's bringing world championships here. People are gonna love you, man. I mean, you can remember the support Whitaker got. I mean, I do. In his hometown anyway, you know. For these fights, especially these main events where guys just blow the weight and the fight gets canceled, you know, undercard fights, okay, maybe you treat it a little bit different. For the main event though, bro, you know, like the especially the A side blowing the weight like this, the B side a lot of times has to get bullied into accepting maybe more money, but maybe not as much money as they want to take. You know, obviously these guys couldn't come to terms today. In both the Pro Box TV main event and the ESPN main event with Keyshawn Davis and Dos Santos. If the B side can't come to an agreement for a piece of the purse, the B side, in my opinion, should not have to go home empty-handed. I don't know. If the fight doesn't happen, then a piece of the A side's purse, the next fight, should be sent over to the B side who didn't fight, because the B side also prepared an entire training camp, made weight, and then isn't going to get paid and isn't going to get a fight. And training camp costs money too, especially for big fights. You got to pay sparring partners. You got to do all those other crap. So should the A side, or should any of the A or B side, anybody in the main event, because main events are bigger fights, anybody in the main event that blows the weight and the fight cannot happen, should the other party that made the weight and now isn't going to get paid and isn't going to get money after all this work they put in, should they be entitled to money from the fighter that missed weight on that fighter's next fight, since they didn't come to an agreement for this fight and the fight is off, and now neither the A side that didn't make the weight or the fighter that didn't make the weight nor the fighter that made the weight are going to get paid? Should the fighter that made the weight now at least be compensated on the other guy's next fight whenever it is that he fights next? You know, because I don't think that guys who make the weight should be punished like this either. You know what I mean? The other side makes the weight and they don't get any money, nothing. And there should be more penalties. Honestly, you blow the weight, you should be more penalties. What if the guy who doesn't make weight, okay, you didn't pay you don't come to terms with the guy who made the weight, so the fight's off. Okay, you don't get paid, but you didn't make the weight. Why should the other guy not? Why should the other guy get punished just as badly? On your next fight, you should have to send that guy money. There should be an injunction where something should be handled where that guy should get a piece of your next purse, because you're going to fight again eventually, right? But it's not right that guy had to go train and go prepare and make weight and do everything and then doesn't get paid in a main event where usually there's real money. I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think. I'm Paulie Malignaggi. This is Paulie TV.